How are you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk, guys. We have a great topic coming your way. The topic is tips to help staff when they transfer to another prison or jail. Me, myself, I've been at 4 facilities. My guest today, Connie Alleyne. Where has she been? But Connie Alleyne, I believe she's worked at 2. So we do have some experience in working at different facilities. So I think it's great advice because I think a lot of us here, especially we work for the prisons, we could transfer probably sometimes at the need of the agency or when we move up. When we move up, they may decide, hey, listen, right now, the room for a supervisor is not at this facility, it's at this facility. So I think this is advice that we have not done on this channel before, but I think it's advice that's needed in this profession. Also, I have 3 sponsors. If you guys haven't, please check out American Military University. It's a great online school. If you guys looking to seek a good college degree, again, check out American Military University. Not only do they support what I do on Tier Talk, but they also support this profession. I also have a book on the market, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. Don't forget, link to that is in the description. Guardian RFID, as you can tell the shirt I'm wearing. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And we also have the wrap restraint. Now, if you guys get a chance, there's a link to a video about what the wrap is. You'll get to see it in the description here. But controlling combative subjects quickly in an upright position so they can breathe has never been more important. Departments such as Washington, DOC, LA County, San Diego County, and hundreds of other facilities across the U.S. trust and believe in the wrap restraint. Go to saferestraints.com for contact information and mention Tier Talk to receive instructor training at no cost. Lower liability for your facility and your personnel with the wrap. Give the wrap a call today, 800-WRAP-911. Now, there she is, Miss America. Hey, Connie, how you been?
I've been good. It's been a long time since we did a show. What's it, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we haven't done one together? Yeah.
Part of it's on me. I know you're asking, just tired, dealing with this new drive to work and back to work. It's an hour 40, an hour 50, going there, coming back. And, I am still trying to go back to our two a week. And then I know the New Year's you had family. And then obviously hope everything's well with your family.
Yes.
So prayers for your family as well.
Yeah.
But you're always smiling, which just shows me nothing but strength because I know there's a lot of stuff that's going on with you. So I just love the fact that I don't know, that smile says so much more today. It just says so much more.
Listen,
so it's a beautiful smile, Connie.
Yeah,
beautiful smile.
You. It's been an interesting time, I think, in everyone's life right now with COVID and just adjusting to family and life and all that goodness. But it's been an exciting time. So, the business.
Well, the world needs that smile. You know what, Connie? We're not even going to do an episode today. We're not. All we're going to do today is, Connie, give us that smile. We'll let it run for about 5 minutes. So hold it.
No way.
Hey, Connie, how you been? How's the book? Business? How's everything going?
It's doing good. And of course, it's just that figuring out new ways to introduce it and to share it and to all of that. And I've got some book clubs coming up, which is exciting, being able to sort of do like that fireside chat type of engagement on the book, which is always good. And then I was recently nominated as one of the top 100 women leaders in Connecticut for 2022. So I think that's to me has been bonkers. I'm like, me? What are they talking about? But it is for Civilian Corrections Academy, so I'm actually very proud about that.
Well, you deserve it, Connie. All the hard work that you do. I mean, just in everything you do, you commit yourself to it. You're dedicated. So hopefully you get it. I mean, honor is just being nominated, but hopefully you get it. You deserve it. So, Connie, what do you think about this topic today? Tips to help staff when they transfer to another prison or jail. Now, I myself, I've only worked at a prison. I mean, I did do some side work for a jail, but that was kind of on my own time. It wasn't really official. But officially, in my profession now, in the last 20 years, I've worked at 4 prisons. So I'm I definitely understand how hard it can be to transition. Even if you work for one agency, one state, it doesn't matter because each facility has its own culture, its own dynamic. But Connie, I know you've worked in a few places, correct?
Yeah, so on Rikers, which you would think like, oh, it's Rikers, it's one place. I actually covered 4 facilities. And each facility had its own challenges, each facility had its own culture, to say the least. And then when I was in Connecticut, I covered as HSA 2 different facilities, but we also covered the state on a rotational basis. So, if, for example, it's my rotation and something's going down in a facility that isn't necessarily my home facility, I may be tasked with going in and trying to work some things out. So, I've had the experience of going into multiple facilities, taking on sort of these leadership roles, trying to, engage staff, get people motivated and all that. But it's tough, and I think one of the biggest things I would think is really important is just having some emotional intelligence. When you walk into these places, you really have to be able to decrease yourself a little bit and learn and ask questions and kind of be able to pick up on some of the social cues. I mean, there's always a lot, but yeah, I've had quite a bit experience going into new facilities and trying to, get things done.
Yeah, like I know in jails, obviously, I mean technically now jails have closed down and they're merging, and again there could be some traveling, or some switch of jobs there, so now the jail closed down, now they're taking the staff to another jail. For prisons, you could see it because you may want to go to a facility that's closer to home, because sometimes you don't get to pick your facility, it's where they assign you. Or as you become a supervisor, I got to move up and this is where the opening is. But again, I mean, there's many reasons why you could be assigned to a different facility, whether it's voluntarily or if you're just being transferred. I mean, hell, sometimes you can be transferred during an investigation until they can figure out, what it is. And I also see the same thing with civilians as well. I mean, the same type of trajectory. If I'm looking to move out, get closer to home, again, when you're working for the state, it's all one big entity. So, there could be ways to maneuver amongst all the facilities that the state oversees. And I'm sure that's going to be the same for contract vendors. Like maybe when you were medical, would that be the same? If the contract is with the county or with the state, it's not just contractual to that one facility. You could see civilians from the contract vendors be reassigned, correct?
Absolutely. And if there's a shortage of resources, you may not necessarily be seeking out, a transfer, but in this particular place, the need is greater than the place you might be at right now, and you might have an involuntary transfer just to meet the needs of the facility. So as medical, it happens all the time. There's certain nursing specialties, or sometimes there's new programming popping up different places. And if you don't have someone in a facility who can manage that program, you may have someone who's transferred over because they're going to need to manage a program. So there's so many reasons why we get transferred around.
Now, there's 2 generalized perspectives here, though, that may relate to this topic here. One is, maybe just doing a general transfer lateral. I'm an officer at this one facility and it's just too far from home, so I want to become an officer at this facility. It's a little bit closer. And maybe there's a different type of adjustment we could talk, as opposed to I'm now being a supervisor. And now I was at this facility, but now I'm getting promoted to this facility. And I think that is a different type of transition. So just generally speaking first, Connie, before we dive in, do you agree with that? There could be a different transition between, let's say I'm frontline and I'm just transferring to this place because it's closer, for whatever the reason. But again, frontline, no change of position, just change of location. But maybe now the next time, maybe let's say I'm moving up. So it's a change of position and a change of location. Is there a difference in adjustment for both?
Absolutely. So I think, when it's just a lateral move, there's no change in status, right? So there really is, you can still go over and it still be status quo. You may still have to learn the facility, to lay out all that goodness. But, when you're changing your status and you will now have direct reports, there's a different level of learning I think that you have to have. And I think certainly different skills you'll have to employ in order to successfully do that transfer.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to probably discuss the supervisory role because I definitely see that happening a lot more, the location and the position. But for now, let's just talk about just I'm transferring my position to another location. So for me, I've never actually did that. I've worked at 4 facilities, but each time I moved to another facility, it was because of a promotion, right? But I am very observant. So I do know a lot of people who have transferred, let's say, into maybe I worked with them at one facility, and then I see them coming into the new facility I'm at, and they still hold the same position. So when we do that, I do tell people one thing I kind of think that we tend to do a lot, even if you're moving up as a supervisory role, is you tend to automatically, right at the beginning, compare the facility that you're coming from to the facility that you're at, and right off the bat, you try to start comparing the practices of both, and you automatically think, well, we did it this way, and this way is better. I would say, guys, before you even think about constantly going back, talking about what your facility did different, you still got to earn the respect of the people around you so they're open to even hearing that. Because you got to remember something. When something is being done a certain way for so long, that is a systematic thing. That doesn't just change overnight because Gangi's going to come in and say, well, we did it this way at this facility. Let's automatically change it this way. No, this is a systematic thing that's happened over time. So unless you really get that respect, most of the time the people don't want to hear what you did at your facility. Once they start to respect you, it may be a little bit different. Maybe they're a bit curious, but at the get-go, and I do think, by the way, we should always be open to see the practices because that's a great way we can learn and evolve. So I'm not saying we don't want to do that, but it's not a good thing to do at the very beginning. Would you agree with that, Connie?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes, right? Like, oh, this is what we did here, or we do it like this over there. And I could hear people saying, well, why are you here then? Or go back over there. Like it's, and I mean, listen, we have to be open to learning new things. And when people come in with different experiences, it's always good to kind of just see what they're talking about and could it add some value, right? But in the meantime, I think that when you transfer over to a new place, you're in the same position you were in previously. It really is just the onus on you to just learn the layout, learn what we do, learn why we do it, and I think once your colleagues, other officers, other staff see that you kind of know what you're doing, like I think then you can kind of ease into I noticed we do something this way. When I was over here, this worked well because of XYZ. Because a lot of times there could be reasons why something might be done a little differently, and as a new person, you won't know the historical reason why there is some sort of difference between the way you do it here versus there. So I think it's also a learning process for you, the new person who transferred in, and you've got to be open to receive that too. Like, we get what you did, but this is what we do and why we do it. So I don't know. I can see there being a little friction if the new person kind of comes in only talking about that, right? Like what but in all honesty, that's all they know. Right. So if I'm trying to establish some sort of common ground as an officer, or as your colleague, however you want to refer, I can only talk about what I know. And so maybe together, if we are open to having that kind of dialogue or relationship, we can kind of compare, right? But I think sometimes it may just be trying to establish some commonality, not necessarily trying to say what we did was better.
Well, I mean, that's how it comes out. As you said, there's a history behind certain things. So when you're going in thinking you could change something right at the get-go, and that goes for supervisors as well. Don't come in because I have a supervisor, I'm going to go change everything. Because, again, like Connie said, you don't know why things are in play. So that's when you ask questions. Now, as a supervisor, you may not want to take that long for that type of adjustment, especially if you see that there's something wrong. But you really want to ask questions before you start trying to implement any changes. I mean, I would really recommend that you take your time with it. But sometimes as a supervisor, if I do see security concerns, as a supervisor, I should know, hey, this doesn't look right. So can you explain why you're doing it this way? And if not, because now you're at that level of responsibility where you're also responsible for that. But again, I think it's more of those questions. Now it's time to ask questions to understand why things are done. And then, really think, okay, hey, you know what? Being that I know you're saying it this way, but having said that, these are my concerns. But again, you still have to get that trust. I know it may sound crazy, but I agree with what Connie said. Me asking you a question when you don't really know me and don't trust me comes as a challenge or something, where if you get to know me, a question is just a question. And ultimately, it could be a learning thing. So I definitely think that, really kind of getting to know, the layout. I love that idea, Connie. And that doesn't matter if you're a custody civilian, knowing the layout is cool. I think that's one of the first things you want to learn. If, as I said, even if you're going as a supervisor, layouts is something that you got to know. But also your resources, your people. Whether you're a supervisor or whether you're a front line, you need to know the people that make up the circle. Because I'll tell you something for me. So like I moved up and I'm at a pretty high level now, where I'm responsible for a lot of choices that are made. But I don't make these choices in isolation. I make these choices filtered through the people that are my experts. So right off the bat, if I'm looking to survive in this new location, I need to know the people that are around me because I'm going to have to be going to them immediately. So I'm not going to say that they're going to trust us right away because trust is earned. But sometimes when you move into a new location and it's kind of a strange land for you, you may have to automatically be put in a position to trust. So it kind of turns out where I guess you could say for that person moving into the new location, trust is automatic, mistrust is earned. Kind of like just the opposite.
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because when I got into this new position, because of the level of responsibility and the level of control I have, I have to rely on the people that are surrounded by me, unless you give me a reason not to. But that's for my survival. I'm in survival mode. So I do agree with that, Connie. Do you think that I'm correct when you're going into an area that's new to you? It may take a while for people to trust you. I get it. But you are going to have to kind of trust them automatically, sad to say, unless there's a
Yeah.
reason to mistrust them. And that's where the mistrust is earned.
Yeah. I mean, so you definitely have to trust that they're going to lead you in the right direction at first, right? Until you know better, then you do better, right? Like, so until you learn different from what you were taught, you really have no choice but to trust whomever you are paired with or you're shadowing or who's training you or what have you not. I think, of course, that's an uneasy place to be in when you are in a new place and you don't really know, right? And I mean, I would take it so far as from a supervisory perspective, when you step into a new space, sometimes depending on the circumstances through which you got into that space or the circumstances surrounding that, it could be challenging, right? To trust, even though you are the new person. So, for example, um, here when I transitioned from the male facility into the female facility, there was some stuff going on in the facility that I didn't know about, right? It was like maybe a couple of administrator meetings later that I started to hear some of the rumblings of what was going on in the facility prior to me transferring there. But I walked in thinking like I gotta trust my nursing supervisors because they know better than me, until I get enough exposure and I get enough, you know, experience in that space. I have to trust them. And now it was hard for me because initially I was getting word, oh, this person's so awful, this person don't this, they don't that. It was like all this stuff. But like I chose to put the stuff aside and learn the person for myself. And so this person's prickly personality was intentional. because of the way she had been treated. It had nothing to do with anything everyone rumored, right? And so we ended up being great working together. But I think that's the thing. Like, we do have to take the time to learn the process, learn what's going on in the facility for ourselves, because everything else is just, that's talk.
Right. And I want to say something, guys. So whether you're a supervisor or frontline, a frontline or supervisor, yeah, the thing here is that you want to allow yourself to learn the place. Don't mess with positive momentum right away. You really don't want to mess with that because, again, things could be running automatic in a positive way, and you don't know. Sometimes you could stop something without realizing it, and all shit will fall back, and you don't realize it at first. That's why you really got to get an understanding, especially if you're a supervisor, because you may have a little bit more control to affect that momentum. But that's why we mentioned before, ask the questions, so you understand what it is that you're doing. And hopefully with your evaluated experience, you'll know that if you decide to make a choice, this could be the ripple effect. So remember, before you decide to change something, you really got to think it through and ask the right questions and get clarity, build some understanding, have a dialogue with the people that's going to affect, and then make sure everybody's on the same page as best you can. And again, that's because you could have some positive momentum and you may not realize it. And then I'm just going to come in as a supervisor, guns a-blazing, because I have that authority, and you're messing things up. And the facility is just going to start slowing down. Because remember, guys, these are systematics. These are things that have been put in play for a while. So you can't expect yourself to implement something and then, oh, got it, we're going to run with it smoothly. No, I mean, these are things that are cultural even.
And people will resist you.
Yeah, because as you said, I agree, because it's systematic, it's cultural. Yep. Now, the other thing too is that when you're going into a new facility, and I don't know if it really matters if you're frontline or supervisor, I kind of see a lot of similarities as we're talking about it. I just kind of hold the supervisors to a higher level because they have responsibilities or authority to create more change, where a frontline guy may just kind of, or a frontline female may just kind of have to go with the flow. Right. The dynamics between the people, the interactions, like, you have to remember something. The facility you work at, as I said, can't be compared to the facility you're at. That doesn't mean that you forget everything you've learned. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you have to realize something. This facility is not your old facility. There are going to be certain things that can apply that will make you better. And there are certain things that you're just going to have to leave in the past because, again, most likely it's the culture of the facility. And you can't go in there thinking that you're going to be able to shift that by, like Connie said, this is how we done it. This is how we done it. Well, no, they're going to become resistant because, that's their culture you're changing, or that's their momentum. So having said that, I want to make sure people are aware that I'm not telling you to forget your experiences of what you've learned. I just want you to know that there are going to be certain things that are going to apply to the new position or the new location and certain things that won't. And you have to know when to let that go. Would you agree with that, Connie?
Yeah. I mean, it just, we know some facilities are like apples to oranges, right? And so it just doesn't work. It just won't fit. And sometimes you do just have to let it go because that is not the way we do things here. And not saying that because we're stuck in a status quo, but because of the way this facility is laid out, because of the security levels of this facility, because of all these factors, right, that we may need to take into consideration, these are the things that we do instead of what this other, you might be suggesting. And so I think what makes it difficult for the new person who may have transitioned in is that they do have to put forth the effort to learn the new stuff, right? Like, because I think by habit, we default to what we know. And I'm just thinking some people resist having to learn something different, having to change, right? Having to evolve. You did it this way here. This is how we do it. Now you've got additional tools in your shed, right? Because now you know how to do this one thing multiple ways, but this is what works best here. So,
yeah. And you know what, guys, even though you may work for, let's say, one agency, and technically we're all following the same policies and procedures, we're all led by different personalities. And eventually the facility itself adopts the personality of its leaders. It's true.
Mhm.
I mean, trust and believe it's true. I mean, I would like to think also there could be some influence from frontline, but most of the time when you walk in a facility, you can kind of see the personality of the leader carried out amongst the front line. So having said that, you have to realize that even though you may be under one agency, whatever it is, there's so many different personalities that it could shift easily. And the funny thing is that when you go to, go in and think you're going to make this change or whatever it is, it's like telling someone that you got to change who you are. Where they're going to be very, because I mean, again, this is who I am. It's hard for me. If someone said, hey, Gangi, you're annoying, and these are things that make you annoying, you need to change that within the next minute. I can't. I know. I can't. It's not going to happen. Plus, I'm like, really? Because that's who I am. I can't change it. So of course, I'm going to be resistant to it because it's me. It's who I am. What do you want me to do? So I guess I'm annoying, besides being cute and cuddable. Cuddy? Can cuddable be an adjective?
Cuddly.
That's what I was looking for, the
cuddly?
LY. I went to the ABLE. That's my default for adjectives. You went for the LY. Very simplistic, Connie. Very simplistic.
Cuddleable? I don't think cuddleable is
no?
I don't know.
I knew it wasn't. I knew it was a problem, but I just wanted to go with it. Because at that point, it's already out there.
You're committed, yes.
Yeah, but so cuddable, guys, is not a word. Cuddly is a word. And an adjective at that. But having said that, so again, you're asking, so when you go in a facility, it's like technically it's the facility's personality. So certain things are going to be like, you know what, this is where I'm at. And I have to be mindful. And again, I may lean more towards a supervisor on this one because of your authority or ability to create change, but also for that frontline person as well is you got to be careful because some things that you may touch on could really relate to that personality of the facility. So, again, I mean, Connie, first off, do you agree with what I just said about the personality of the leader kind of filtering its way to kind of...
Absolutely. I mean, because we know all the time, right? Like the tone is set by leadership. And so if this is the way you see the leader conducting themselves, the leader is the role model, right? And so not to say everyone is going to take on sort of the behaviors of the leader, but for the most part, the leader sets the tone for how we engage with each other in facilities, how we, is it a facility that you're allowed to ask questions, right? Is it a facility where you're allowed to make mistakes, where we foster open communication, or do you shut down, right? Is it a facility where the leader has an open door policy? If not, because we're learning how to lead by looking at the leader, some people, right? And we take on some of the habits, the mannerisms and such of that leader. And so absolutely, I agree that, the leader is setting the tone for how we conduct ourselves in facilities.
And I think we also, as time moves by, because I'm actually thinking about when I switched schools when I was a kid. I went to multiple schools as a kid, and you do kind of feel lost at first. And it does make sense in what we're saying, understanding the layout and getting to know the people. And I'm not. The funny thing is I'm not saying to rob yourself of your own identity, but there is an emphasis on fitting in. So there is a balance here, because I'm thinking about, again, think about this, guys. Switching facilities is like a school going to different cliques. You want to be accepted. But having said that, you also don't want to change who you are. So there is a balance there too, but it takes time to really let them to allow you to be who you are, if you will. Again, that's why I said they have to get to know you. They have to build trust for you. And then you could eventually, come out, but in the meantime, when you go to that new facility, it really is about you learning that new facility. It's about you trying to understand what this facility is about. So I'm using the word fitting in, and I think it does make sense here. It's not meaning that you lose your self-identity. It just means that, well, let me fit in, see what this place is about, so they don't see me as someone that's resistant to, oh, I think I'm from this facility and I'm better, because we do have that between each other. We do. Some people may come from busier facilities, get transferred to let's say, a slower facility, and the people from the slower facility may think something about the person from the busier facility, think, oh, now we got this person who thinks they're better than us, and the person may not. It just happens to be I work at a facility where maybe I gained a different type of experience, you know, and you got to watch out, because now you could be coming in, and now people could project how they feel. Maybe deep down inside they feel inferior to you because of your experiences. So the moment you go to question something, it's a challenge, because what, you think you're better than us because you worked at this facility that was very busy? It's like, nah, you know what? At this point here, I'm just going to learn. Maybe I will ask questions. So if you take it as a challenge, that's on you, but I'm here to learn. But having said that, I think at the very beginning, there is some balance between trying to fit in and also trying to maintain your identity. But if I had to choose at first, if your identity is an aggressive, you know, type of identity where it's like, I'm going to come in and make these changes right away and just kind of constantly prove myself every day, and, you know, this is wrong because I worked at this facility and we did it this way, well, then I'm going to tell you to hold off on that for a while and try to see how this facility operates and kind of fit in. Do you think there's a balance between that, the fitting in and the self-identity?
So I think so, because you made a good point. Like, if someone comes from a very busy facility, right? Like, I think there's some things characteristic of a busy facility, right? Like, that person probably moves quickly because of the chaos or the busyness of the facility. They probably make decisions quickly or make decisions on the fly because that's what they've had to do to survive in their busier facility. I think there's certain things that it may take time for that person to minimize, especially if you've come from someplace really busy and you're going to someplace that's a little slower, right? So whoever you might be partnered with may help you recognize that, like, hey, you could slow down a little bit, right? Like
that's a good point, Connie, by the way. You're talking about that, you know, again, elaborate, but that's something I'm dealing with right now, the tempo, you know, going from a facility that has that fast tempo and then going to a facility that's a little bit more slower. You know, you can't try to expect that one facility to speed it up, correct? Is
right.
That what
so you can't expect them to.
Hold on, Connie. You muted for a second. That was on my phone. I went to put solo screen, and you muted. So this is what I heard. This is exactly what I heard. You can't expect it. Okay, so I meant to hit solo screen. So here, let me hit solo screen again and start from this line. You can't expect to. Okay, hold on and go.
Right. So what I was saying is, you can't expect for the folks in the slower facility to adjust to you. And I think you have to be mindful that there has been a transition, right? And in taking in this new environment, that means you may need to slow your pace down, right? That means, you know, maybe you might not speak so quickly. Maybe you don't ask. I'm not saying not to ask questions. Maybe in that you are transitioning, it's not about you having to troubleshoot all the time. Like, you're maybe not always in firefighter mode. And I think, like, that's something that we have to be mindful of, whether it's the person you're partnered with or just your own reflection of yourself, that, you know, there is a significant transition when you not just transfer to another facility, but when you're trying to adjust to the culture of another facility, where maybe one place supported you making the decisions on your own and the other place wants you to run this decision up the food chain 5 layers, right? Like, so I think we have to just really just be mindful of, when we transition into a new facility, that facility has its own culture, and the way that we conduct ourselves and conduct business in those facilities will be very different.
And Connie, you made something that's, I don't want to gloss over something here, but you got facilities that empower their people and some facilities that don't. And, you know, try to empower your people in a facility that's micromanaged. I mean, the problem is it's tough, because the problem is, at that point, that's all they know. So they expect to be guided through every step. And then, you know, all of a sudden you go to a facility where people are empowered, and it's like, wow, look at this momentum here. You just say one thing and it runs. So,
and you don't even know what to do in that facility, because that's not what you've been able to do in the past.
Right. So you have to allow yourself to not have that, not that you mean to, but sometimes it happens. You may have that micromanaging mentality, not because you meant to, just that you worked at a facility where you had people that were very dependent on every move. And then all of a sudden you go to a facility that has this crazy momentum going, and you're just so used to doing the follow-up that they're like, hey, dude, you're messing with our momentum. We don't need you to call us every 2 minutes. It's like, I'm sorry, I worked at a facility where, and this is more of a supervisory thing. You know, I mean, yeah, it's frontline too, but this is more of a supervisory perspective. You can work at a facility that, you know, really did require you to go step by step with people. And then all of a sudden, because you've been at that facility for so long, now you go to this one other facility that it runs on this crazy automatic momentum, but you still got this old style of leadership. Not that it's not that it's your fault, it's just it was the culture of the facility. And now you got to like, whoa, this. So every time you're following up, which is what you did at the other place, they don't do that here. These people want to be empowered. They want to bring. So again, that's a good thing for you to realize, and that's an adjustment you have to make. Now the funny thing is, the reverse can really test somebody too, because you can work at a facility. Let's say I'm moving up. I think it's called the Peter principle, right? So let's say I'm moving up and I happen to be at a facility where I've been lucky to work with people that have their own momentum, minimal guidance, whatever it is, and you just kind of get something and they kind of run it, you know? And then all of a sudden I work at another facility that, you know, as I move up, that the facility is a facility that tends to be relying on everything. Now all of a sudden I have no idea what to do, because I've only worked at facilities where, you know, they carried out. So I will tell you one thing, even if a facility has that crazy momentum, don't stop the momentum. But sometimes it's good to get an understanding of point A to point B to point C. Even if they're not telling you, it's good to understand, hey, just didn't learn. Just want to know how we got from here to here. Like, so don't automatically sit back and, you know, not want to learn from the automatic running, but don't stop it. I'm just saying not want to learn. You should want to learn, because there could be a moment as a supervisor where you're faced with a moment where it's not running automatic and you're going to have to learn how to do it. So just don't allow people to have that momentum. You don't want to micromanage, but somewhere along the line, you still got to learn about that momentum. Does that make sense? I don't want you to get in the middle and stop it. But I think as a supervisor, it's still good to kind of see how things run out. Go on the floor, take a look at things, just in case something happens, you know, because again, if you have a facility that's really working well and they do run on momentum, there's a good chance that the person behind the scenes really doesn't know much of how the facility operates. Now, again, I'm not looking to stop it. I want to be very careful when I say that. But I do think management should know some of that, because if something ever happens, they got to be able to explain.
But they should know not only just for the explanation part. I think they should also know, because if in the event the smooth sailing is happening all the time, all you need is one person out that day, right? And so I think as a manager, we should be able to see where the bottleneck is going to happen and be able to forecast that, like, oh, you know, so-and-so's out today, but this is what we got going on. And two, we should be able to do what we're asking our teams to do, right? So if there's steps 1 through 4 and number 3 is out, as the manager, I might not know everything about all 4 steps, but I should be able to stand in the gap to support the team on step number 3, where we know we have an absence. And I think, and if I can't personally do it, I should be able to advise someone. So if I'm going to delegate, I should be able to delegate 3 to somebody who could, and be able to explain it. Like, yes, you're going to have to work with everyone in the chain 1 through 4. You're number 3. But here's the expectation of you in number 3. I think we can't be so far removed from the process that we don't know what's going on, or that we can't be of support.
It's great you mentioned that, because as you move up from frontline to executive, it does tend to move from specific to general.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not saying you have to understand every specific. Like Connie said, I agree. You don't have to, but you should have an idea. So like, you know, you're when you're sitting there and you work at a facility that does happen to run on momentum, I mean, again, you should still try to learn what you can. I mean, again, don't mess with the practice, but you know, this may be a spot where you have to intentionally learn. You can work at a busy facility and you'll learn passively. You know, every day you're doing something new and you're learning, but there could be some facilities where, okay, I'm learning how to delegate, but I really don't know how a facility operates because this facility runs on momentum. So you'd be a little bit more intentional. But whatever you do, especially as a supervisor, you try not to mess with positive momentum, but it doesn't mean you can't ask, hey, how does this get done? That's amazing. And, wow, I didn't know that works, because again, you're building. But again, that's where, to me, it's going to be more intentional. I've worked at busy facilities where I didn't have time to intentionally learn. It's just so busy that you're learning every day something new. And by the time you're home, you're exhausted. But then you work at a facility that's a little bit slower, and it's like, okay, I got to do something with my time. So I could either just be on the computer playing solitaire all day, or let me go see what the front line's doing today. Let me go see how they handle their tours, or let me go talk to medical, see what medical's got going on, and and just kind of observe the routine. Again, not to stop them from doing it. I always want to mention that, because I know, people are like, oh, we're not looking to be micromanaged. I get it, but I think it's still good for us to observe it and understand the practice. Because again, now here's the funny thing. When you want to create good, positive change, as I said, when the front line brings it up, it goes from the specific to the general. But when we want to make change, we ourselves as management have to go from the general to the specific. So it's very good for us to understand the specifics of where we want to change something, so we know how things are truly affected. So we do want to understand the general operations of something. But if I'm looking to truly change something, I better know damn well, straight down to the nail, of how specific it is. Would you agree with that, Connie?
Every single detail you need to know if you're looking to go in and change a process that's in place, and even if you have the best justification for why it has to change, you need to know everything that it will impact when you change the slightest thing in that process.
Yeah, no, but you're right, and again, guys, so the dialogue here, I mean, there's pretty much not really much. I mean, as long as the general dialogue here is that you got to give yourself time to understand the operation of that facility. Be careful with momentum. The last thing you want to do is mess with momentum. Again, I'm not telling you to lose yourself, but you have to kind of fit in. But in the process, obviously you don't. I'm not telling you to change who you are either, but you have to learn, and there could be some adapting and adjusting. And if you constantly look back at the facility that you came from, then you yourself are not evolving. But again, I still want to say on the adverse of that once people start to trust you and they know what you're about, they start to be open to what you have to say, then, it's like, well, I get why you do it this way, and we've talked about it. But I was wondering, at I almost said my prison, at this prison, we've always done it this way. Maybe we could try it. And now again, guys, their want to shift is really based on the fact that I like you, Gange, or I like you, Connie, and we'll check it out. I mean, unless again, if there's, as a supervisor, there's really some real serious security concerns. Now, I'm not, as an officer too, if you notice it, you should do something about it. But definitely as a supervisor, you are responsible for that. You're not going to be able to shift that to anybody. Where if I was an officer, it's like, well, I noticed that was a concern, and I brought it to my sergeant. Now the sergeant's got that responsibility anyway. But if you're a supervisor, you got that responsibility. You have to. The dynamics of the people, the layout, it's not always easy to transition. It's not. But having said that, it could be the best thing when it comes for growth. It really is. I mean, I'm at 4 prisons right now. I allow myself to grow at each one. I allow myself to be open to what they have to teach. And I'm at a very high position to where I'm at a new facility I know very little about, and I'm in control of that facility. Now, when I say I'm in control, what does that mean? I listen to my people. Because I'm telling you something, guys. They'll hand you the keys to a kingdom that you know very little about. And the problem is there's no way you can go in and say, I'm going to run this ship from day one. No, you're going to mess up everything. Because then you're going to be gone in a couple of weeks anyway, however it works. But the point is that when they give you that key to the kingdom, look at it as my time to learn something new, my time to understand the workings, meet with the people, work with them, whatever it is, and then help. I think that's the key. So when you're moving up at the highest position to a new facility, I would look at it this way. Not how can I run things better? How can I help better? How can I help them be more effective? As opposed to how can I run it better? No, how can you help them be more effective? Connie, any last thoughts before we go into closing?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm just thinking too, when you mentioned you don't want people to not be themselves, right? like, because I feel like we're it's kind of like a dual message here, right? So you want to be yourself
Wait,
because
Connie, if you're not in agreement with me, I can mute you. Watch. So, Connie, what's your thought again? Connie? I can't hear you, Connie. It must be a bad connection, Connie. No, I know. I'm just joking. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, say your thoughts. I'm joking.
yeah, so I am in agreement, but what I'm saying is we want to be clear in that when you go into a new place, yes, there is a way that you minimize sort of your experiences from the old place because you want to soak up, you want to learn the new place, right? But I would just say you want to always be yourself, right? Because when people get to know you, because like say you put on the representative today and then they finally get to know you, they're like, yo, who's this person, right? It's almost harder to trust because we only met the representative for the first 3 months and they never got to see who you are, who you really are. So I would just, as you approach going into a new facility and getting to know the people you work with, understanding the layout, resources, all that goodness, just be yourself, right? And because you don't want it to be, the 3 months down the line, they're like, yo, I don't know who this person is.
Well, first of all, I like what you said because we did talk about like it's a balance.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to come in with such an aggressive, because you got to realize something. You could have such an aggressive personality coming in where it's at that point, I'm like, you know what? Maybe you have to kind of pull it back. So there's got to be a balance of, I got to fit in because it's a new location. I'm in a new environment. What made me think about that is my kids going to school. I'm going to tell my kids, I want you to be yourself. I do. But you also have to realize you're in a new environment right now. So, if being yourself is pushing everybody away because you're in a whole different environment, I want you to rethink it. Again, just the balance, because again, you have to give respect also to the environment you're in. It doesn't mean you have to shift who you are. Because I love what you said, Connie. I don't want to overlook either. As you said, you have to minimize certain experiences, and I agree with that because certain experience can define who you are, but may not apply to where you're at. So having said that, I do find a lot of people falling back on that facility that they worked at prior because that's where they're the most comfortable at. That gives them a reflection of who they are, but it may not be who they want to be now. Again, I'm not talking about shifting. That's where the balance is. But the point is, if you keep on going back to your comfort zone, first off, you're not growing. That's one thing. If I constantly go back, we've done it this way, we've done it this way, we've done it this way, I'm also being an asshole to the people that are trying to tell me, hey, Gange, I get that facility. I get it. But you now, because here's the funny thing. Every time I look backwards to tell them what I want them to do, I'm also telling them that they need to stretch out of their comfort zone, but I'm not willing to do it. So think about how hypocritical. That's why there's got to be a balance. That's why it's kind of understand the territory, that balance like you mentioned, right? I love that minimizing the experience. I really do. I think that was just what triggered what we just said here. I think that was so spot on because sometimes that experience is a fail-safe. Sometimes it's like, I am confused right here. I don't know what's going on. So what I'm going to do now is fall back to what I know. But then the problem is that's the comfort zone. And then I'm trying to tell people, hey, you're not willing to try new things. And I'm like, well,
and it doesn't work here, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't work here, which makes it worse.
Yeah, but it was such a good thing that you said minimize your experience because I want people. Yeah, I was very. If you notice when we said that comment, I was trying to bring a balance, and I knew it was. I said I want people to fit in, right? But I don't. I also want them to be a sense of themselves, and I do think I think that in an effort to fit in, I don't know if there's just a extreme change of self. I just think that you have to kind of see what this environment's about before you try to create crazy changes. I think that's what it is. And usually the crazy changes that you try to create are probably based, I love what you said, Connie, with the minimizing the experience, probably based on experiences because you yourself are in your comfort zone. So having said that, if you are going to bring up something that you feel is beneficial to the facility, a change, whatever it is, it should be a change that makes sense in the environment that you're in, as opposed to a change that only makes sense to you because for whatever reason it makes you feel better. That minimizing your experience was was spot on. But please, guys, by the end of the dialogue, if you made it this far, I want to make sure that we mention, because Connie's right. I mentioned a balance. I don't want you not to be who you are, but I want you to also evaluate yourself and make sure at this point that it doesn't affect what you need to learn from the environment you're in. So again, if my girls were going to a new school, of course I want them to be who they are, but I also want them to learn the environment as well, because again, most of the time we get our learning from the environment anyway. If you're going in and you want to learn and grow, you have to kind of see what's around you first. So again, if I went in ultra aggressive and just worried about me and not worried about everybody else around me, I'm not learning, and I'm probably going to be a bad influence for whatever, especially in a supervisory position, the facility I'm going to. So you have to balance the fitting in out of respect for the new environment. Let's do that. But also, yes, a sense of yourself. So one is you're honest with the people, so they know who you are. I love when Connie said that, but also that you're honest to yourself. And I think there's a balance. And Connie, let me tell you something. If you're always willing to grow, then fitting in doesn't change who you are at first. It doesn't. Absolutely. And when I say fitting in, guys, I'm talking about fitting in for growth. That's all. I'm not talking about change yourself and go hang out with a negative crowd because the negative crowd is doing something foolish. I'm talking about fitting in to an extent that you allow yourself to grow in this new place, and then kind of, at least if you make decisions, it's fair and objective, as opposed to I'm going to come in and do things my way. I really love that, minimizing your experience. I think I'm going to maybe we could devote a whole show on that in itself. Hey, Connie, anything you'd like to say in closing?
In closing, I just want to say, listen, you go to a new facility, you can't walk in like you know everything, because you don't, right? And so it does you a disservice to walk in and assume to know what you don't know, right? Like, I feel like no matter how long you worked in corrections, no matter how many facilities you worked in, everyone has a different culture. Everyone has a different, just everything, right? The inmates are different, officers are different, personalities, all that stuff, right? And so I think when you transfer into a new facility, walking in like a sponge and really soaking up the culture, soaking up the process, the system, how do we do things? Why do we do things? Ask questions, and really just be there to learn, being a student of that facility in the moment. I think that matters, because it will inform the way you conduct yourself moving forward. And it shows a certain level, I think, of respect for the people who are already there. The people already there working hard, doing what they got to do. And I'm not coming in trying to make it seem like I know everything. I know everything and I'm going to tell you how to do your job. No, it is, I'm going to walk in. I respect that you know more, you know better than me, because you've got more experience here than I do. And yes, it's always good to, yes, you've had these experiences. No one's saying dismiss those experiences. What we're saying is learn your space and the context that you're in right now. And there may be ways that you can add value based on things that you did in the past, but you got to learn what you need to do now in order to know whether those things could be incorporated.
Yeah, and guys, listen, I want to compliment two thoughts. We make sure we get it out, because you definitely have, if people are invested in the dialogue, there's definitely some interpretation here. So real quick, so dismissing experience, we never said. Minimizing, yes, because if it overwhelms you for moving forward, then yes, you have to. Easier said than done, I know, but it's the truth. If the experience at an older facility is stopping you from learning what needs to happen at the new facility, then yes, you got to do what you can to allow yourself to grow. And when we say fit in, I think that is respectful. Again, there's not a shift in who you are. I don't mean it in that light. I mean is, you got, like what Connie said, you got to fit in, immerse yourself in the culture, see what it's about before you go in and start thinking that you're going to change the world. Because again, the facility itself, it's systematic, guys. I mean, these are things that, have been in place for quite some time, the dynamics, the people. So you can't expect to go in and change that overnight. You can't. All you have to do is say, hey, you know what? This is my time to humble myself, and let me just see what it's about. And I know there are going to be some people that are going to be sitting there like, I'm not going to change me. No one's saying to change you. We're telling you to be a little bit more respectful to the environment you're in now, and seeing, I mean, it could have an effect on you. It could, but maybe it should. Because again, to be honest with you, I know this may sound crazy, And by the way, everything I talk about has a positive perspective. So anybody that looks to find a negative part, there's always going to be negative. So when I say something is going to have a positive perspective, remember, guys, go into a facility and move into different facilities. If you want to learn from each facility, then you can't be the same old you.
Yep.
You know, I can't bring the mentality I had at this last facility and bring it. What's the sense? How am I growing? You know, I want to take the move to another facility as a growth, a personal growth, a professional growth, even if I'm in the same position or not. So having said that, I do believe there should be some level of change to incorporate growth. Because if I moved through 4 different facilities, there's no way I was the same I was than I was at my first facility almost 20 years ago. But I allowed the facility to affect me in a positive way. Now, people are going to argue and say, well, yeah, some facilities operate, it's I don't care about negative. Growth is positive. So what I'm telling you is you have to allow yourself to grow, which means that, yeah, you can shift, but you never change. Like Connie even said, even if you minimize experience, I never said forget who you are. You know, we all have a root, but we also grow. So as long as it's in a positive way, the trajectory is where you want it to be, there's no change in who you are. It's growth. But if you're going to sit there and say, well, I'm not going to change, and, you know, the person I was today, when it comes to growth professionally and personally is the same I was 20 years ago, that's a problem. I mean, yeah, there are some core values that always stay with you, you know, that are proper core values, but we have to allow ourselves to grow intellectually, professionally, you know, personally every day. So, you know, I think that's the key. And the only way you can allow yourself is what Connie said spot on, is to really immerse yourself into that culture and allow yourself to kind of be affected by it to some extent, to see maybe there are certain things, because the whole time we may walk in because we want to go back to what's comfortable because we're in the new land, and we want to say, well, you know, how can I have an effect on this environment? What can I do to change things? But maybe the question should be is, you know, what can the environment do to change you in a positive way? You know, at this point in the new land. And before I end it, Connie, I think there's only fairness to get you another thought out there, because I kind of touched on a lot of your thoughts and I see you agreeing. And I know when I see past 4 nods, 5 nods, she fucking fell asleep. I'm going to tell you that right now. If there's 5 nods, she's not agreeing. She fucking fell asleep. But I saw only 4 nods. So 4 nods mean you may have a thought you want to say?
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to say, like you mentioned the negative, and I want to say, like, negative stuff happens all the time, and that's shit that helps us grow as well, right? Like I think we sometimes want to dismiss it because, but I also get what you mean when it's sometimes people only focus on the negative and they can't extract the positive out of that negative situation that might have occurred or they experienced. So that was the one thought I had about that. The other thing that I was thinking about as you were talking was, you know, I think it's not as easy as we're saying it to kind of be able to minimize those experiences. But I think if we bear in mind that there's a time and place for everything, right? Because timing is everything, right? And so as you go in, you immerse yourself, you learn, you show that you are an active, a willing participant, you're part of the team. I think timing matters, right? You now belong to the family. You're part of you're here, right? And they see that you're invested in learning and in the process, right? And so as you want to introduce things that you may have experienced, I think timing will matter. And so just be mindful that every situation doesn't require you to bring up a past experience. There are times and places and spaces where that would be appropriate.
Yeah, and guys, as I said, you know, anything that stops your growth matters, you know. But I think this was a good dialogue. I think we explored along the way. I think the initial thoughts get to be where they need to be, and for the further, you know, as you move further along, there is some clarification, because as we had the discussion, you're thinking about, well, someone can interpret it this way, even though we said what needed to be said right the first time. Sometimes it's good to clarify it, because again, you know, there's maybe meaning you don't want overlook, because you could have people that are stuck in that negative perspective that won't see what we just said. So having said that, it's good to clarify, because we can't always expect people to see what we see. So great dialogue, guys. If you haven't, again, the show's Tier Talk. If you have, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit the bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.